All right, hey guys, as mentioned, we have a brand new guest on the show today. He was a former singer of the US rock band Burn Halo and is still currently the lead vocalist of Orange County's own 18 Visions, Mr. James Hart. James, thanks so much for being on the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Again.
Awesome, man. Yes. Unfortunately, we had a few technical issues last time. Dude, before we actually get into the 18 Vision sides of things, noticed on your Instagram, obviously a huge Oasis fan.
Yeah.
Dude, did you get tickets? Are they playing in the US? And if so, have you got tickets?
Yeah, they are. I'm going to the 2 Toronto dates with a friend that lives there, and then I got tickets for the 2 LA gigs as well.
Cool, man.
So, can't miss that one.
Awesome.
Are you guys going?
No.
Look, my wife and I are debating because either way we have to travel a fair bit. I mean, obviously you're going to Toronto, so traveling's not much of an issue.
Right.
But yeah, we're thinking about maybe Sydney or Melbourne. We're thinking about it.
Cool.
It's kind of one of those generational things. You don't want to miss it, right? It's because it may never happen again after this. So
yeah,
you kind of have to show up.
Yeah. For me, at least, they're like a top 10 band. So for me, I got to do it.
I was literally going to say, how pumped were you when you heard that news?
Yeah, it was getting teased around. I was talking to a couple friends about it, and we're just like, how many shows are they going to do? And then they announced the UK run, and I couldn't get tickets for that. Well, I could. There was like 1 ticket or 2 tickets available, like way up in the back of the stadium at Wembley. And they were like 500 quid, which for me is like $750 about US. And it's just like plus flight, plus lodging. And I'm just like, I don't want to pay that for a terrible seat. They did this like dynamic pricing, right? Where as the demand increased, the prices went up, which is completely like fucked by Ticketmaster, but that's just the racket that they have.
That's relatively new. Like they're doing that with a lot. I know Green Day had that out here as well, that dynamic pricing. And I know in the UK it's been an issue.
Yeah, it's an issue here as well.
Yeah, it's a massive issue. So what is a way to combat that? Like, I mean, artists are aware of it. Do you think artists are on board with that? Or they really don't have any say in how that goes?
Well, I believe they put the nix on that. Like they killed that for the rest of like the tour dates that were announced. They weren't allowing that dynamic pricing because the way that's going to work for them, right, is whoever the talent buyer is, like if it's Live Nation or whatever, they're just giving the artists an all-in fee for all of the shows, right? Like we're going to give you $10 million for 10 shows or whatever. It's $1 million a show. And they're going to do what they need to do to set the ticket pricing so that they can recoup and make money. But they see how fast it's selling and they just start to adjust it. So their profit is just, it becomes insane and the band doesn't see that. So
yeah. It's obviously been a huge, and I think because obviously Ticketmaster and like say Live Nation, obviously pretty massive players in that, there's really, like I saw an article maybe a little while ago that, if you're not going to sign or be submissive to that sort of stuff, then I saw something read maybe a while ago. They're just not going to put you on certain festivals that are run by Live Nation or Ticketmaster or stuff like that. They're just going to go, well, you're not going to play.
Sure, possible for sure.
So we'll jump into it, man. Dale and I obviously got into you guys around probably. Well, I first heard of you guys when the self-titled album come out, and I think Dale got a hold of you guys around Obsession. I think as last time, Dale, give us a bit of a quick rundown of how you got into 18 Visions.
How I got into the band?
Oh, sorry, Dale. He found. So I think Dale, you saw it on, what was it, like Last FM, and then showed me. Yeah. If we're going to jump halfway into sort of your career, around the Obsession time, you guys obviously kind of sort of blew up in that scene. Before we get to the self-titled, what was it like around that period being in a band in that genre? Because I know in Australia we were in a band similar sort of genre around that time, and I know in Australia, man, it was an awesome time to be in a band. What are some of the memories that you have around that Obsession time, the touring, the recording, and whatnot, and just being in a band in that time? in America or just touring?
Yeah, the recording was different. That was like the first time we worked with like a producer that wanted to do pre-production with us. And we're kind of like stripping down some of the songs and getting us to maybe rewrite some parts. Um, he sent me to a vocal coach because I was a shitty singer and I had poor timing. And um, that helped a little bit. But I think it was just, I screwed around in the studio a lot. I didn't take it super seriously because our producer Mudrock he was pretty wound up. He was uptight, you know, and um, he was like all business. And you know, at that point, I was just used to going in and singing and not having to do like over and over and over again. All right, you're sharp. Okay, you're flat. Well, your timing's off. Okay, you're pitchy. You're this, you're that. And I'm like, fuck, man, I got to keep doing this over and over and over again. And in the end, it made me a better singer because it just made me like aware that I needed some things to work on for myself as like a vocalist, and that you know, I felt like I needed to like pull my weight in the band in that category. So that was good for me. The touring was great. We started off, I think, touring on that record before it came out. We did Hymns' first ever U.S. tour, and that's another like top 10 band for me. I absolutely love that band. So that was a great experience. We did like a pretty big Killswitch Engage tour. That was awesome. And really like on the touring front, it's where we started to do a lot more stuff internationally. We did a headliner down in Australia that was great. We were in the UK for like, gosh, I feel like we were back over there 3 times within the span of 6 months doing supporting and then our own headliner. And like the touring was just really, really good and really fun. And some of those shows were some of the best, you know, moments of my life as a musician on that record.
You seem to have an affinity with the UK, just things that I've seen and just little posts that you have and so forth. So what is it about the UK that you just, I don't know, that you fell in love with, and why? Like, what is it about the UK that you actually dig?
Man, you know, I think because the drives were always short and we found ourselves playing in city centers and getting to like walk around and experience stuff on our own before and after the gigs. I really fell in love with the walkability of everything. Uh, I like history, and I find English history fascinating as well. So I like the weather, which is, I know, odd, right? Like I live in sunny Southern California, but I do enjoy the weather a bit. Yeah, I like the whole lot of it. I like football, or as we call it and you call it, soccer.
Yeah.
So it's always just kind of had, uh, you know, a special place for me. I love Italy as well. I have like a deep love for Italy and Spain, just places that I really have always enjoyed visiting leisurely. So yeah, it's kind of, I guess, where it starts. And I think for Italy as well, it's a lot of the historical side of it I just find fascinating. You know, the United States is a very new country in the grand scheme of things. And, you know, some of our oldest buildings date back to like the late 1700s, which is not very old. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so you know, you can go visit the Alamo in San Antonio, and that's cool, but it's not like visiting, you know, Hampton Court Palace in England, outside of London, where, you know, King Henry VIII used to live, or, you know, the Tower of London, or, you know, some of these castles up in Scotland in the Highlands and whatnot. You know, or obviously the Colosseum, or all of like the ruins over there. So it's just really, really cool.
My wife and I, we find ourselves watching a lot of UK TV and like Shetland, visiting places like Shetland, like the, you know, the Northern Islands and all that stuff is really appealing because of the climate. Here it can be very cold. Like even in Australia, it's similar to the UK. Like I would imagine climate-wise, especially if you're in Melbourne or Tasmania. And there's just something about that climate, like you said, it's really appealing, you know. And all those dramas, like any British drama, is like the best show to watch. So if you haven't watched a lot of British dramas, get on that. So good, so
I think
good.
some of them over here, and I have watched a few of them. Maybe you guys can send me a list afterwards, and I'll see what I have access to. But yeah, I do like a lot of the dramas because I feel like there's not a lot of BS. There's no filler. They're not trying to like milk 10 seasons out of something. They do it right. You know, it's straight and to
Yeah.
the point. There's not a lot of fluff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the acting's more believable for some reason. Like if I watch an Australian in a drama, I'm fucking out. Like I'm out straight away. But the British dramas, it seems to be like, yeah, man, like they're real people. Like they're not actors, even though they are. It's strange.
There's some great actors that come from Australia, man.
Just quickly, what would be your favorite Australian show? Do you get any Australian shows over there that you watch?
I wouldn't even know, to be honest with you. There
Okay.
was a show here that I really liked. It's a little cheesy, but it was based off an Australian film called Animal Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
And the series was enjoyable for me. I liked it. You know, it wasn't like amazing.
Yeah.
It's not like a top 10 or
Yeah.
top 20 show for me, but it was good. I liked it.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
So coming out of Obsession and then, and obviously vocally, I sing and I'm hugely, big fan of your voice, man. I think very interesting to see your voice grow through the albums, especially melodically. And I feel that you've created a certain style with certain melodies that you create. And also, I think a lot of your production, it seems to be that you like to do layering octaves, you know, high and then a lower octave, which sounds really, really cool. So you obviously got more melodic on Obsession, and then coming through to the self-titled album. What was the writing process like? Obviously, you come off, you know, really successful with Obsession. What was it like coming into the self-titled album? Obviously, you signed to a major, I think, for that one. Was there a bit more pressure to write? You know, we've got to continue this sort of run, and once again, stylistically, you got more melodic again. And as we quickly mentioned last time when we had the interview, Dale and I both definitely think that album production wise is like a new metal version of like Def Leppard's Hysteria, because it's heavy music, great melodies, amazing vocal production, chorus like background vocals. It's amazing. So yeah, tell us what that transition was like and writing that album.
Yeah. Okay. So we never felt pressure ever. We just wrote what we wanted to write, and that was just kind of a product of like where our heads were at the time, what we were listening to. Ken and Keith had like a lot of the same but very different influences. You know, Ken brought like kind of like Ken wrote Tower of Snakes, and he wrote a lot of heavy stuff, but he was listening to, you know, we all listened to this band Cave In, but he was really into Cave In, and bands like Radiohead, you know, kind of that more like alternative stuff where I think we all enjoyed that, but Keith was more into like the pop punk side of things, and he liked like Def Leppard and The Cure and stuff like that. And I can still hear a lot of like The Cure influence on some of his tones that he uses even on the new stuff. But he wrote this song, I think like I kind of touched on it last time. And I feel like we were in Australia when he played it for me for the first time. And it was a Mother's Day gift for his mom. And it was called Mother's Day. And there was no vocals on it. And it ended up becoming Broken Hearted. And I think, you know, I wrote the chorus to that one. And then he wrote like the verse. We kind of wrote the verses together. He kind of had like the structure for them and some of the lyrics. And I think that we did a lot of demoing on our own, even with Obsession. I think that demo was pretty solid. I think the one thing that Machine, the producer, really helped us take that song to the next level was the writing wise was the bridge vocal. Like we didn't have like a solid bridge, and so he helped get that out of us.
Yeah.
The label, my friend Matt that sings for Avenged Sevenfold referred me to his vocal coach, this guy Ron Anderson, who's an absolute legend. Unfortunately, he's not around anymore, but he took me to a different place vocally with like 5 sessions, and I'll be forever grateful for the knowledge that he's given me, because without it, I wouldn't be the singer I am. And Machine really pushed us to explore different ideas and different things, even with songs that were like fully written, because he was challenging us to strip them down even more and like make them even better. Well, how can we make this better? And I think he heard something on some of these choruses that I was writing, especially with Broken Hearted, that there's, and like, you know, the beginning of Broken Hearted kind of has like a Def Leppard like feel to like the intro guitar, right? Yeah, and I think he picked up on that, and he's just like, we need to make the vocals sound like this. And being big fans of the band, Keith and I were just like, yeah, that could be really cool. And so we did that, and the way we did that was very interesting. We didn't have 5, 10, 15 people in a room on one mic. No. I would do like 8 to 12 takes and do like 2 of each take, and they would all be very different. They would be like harmonies. They would just be like some weird voice that I would never sing in. And then he would bring in, like, I think Ken did a bunch, Keith did a bunch. We brought in some friends from other bands that like would lay down, and the way that he just mixed it all together just worked. And I don't know if that was like a Mutt Lange thing that he like knew a little
Absolutely
Mutt Lange trick or what. I'm not like very well versed in like how Mutt Lange produces. I just know a Mutt Lange song when I hear one, and they're usually fucking great.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that went down. And one other thing too was at that point, I think we, for the most part, were all very like tied to our songs, right? Like if Ken wrote a song, it was very personal to him. If I like wrote, you know, melodies and lyrics, it was very personal to me. So for somebody to come in and say like, no, this could be better, I want you to do better, you know, and Mudrock on Obsession did a little bit of that, but he was a little more passive about it. Machine was very like, no, this can be better. Like we can do better. Like, and it really challenged me to like, try and like step outside like the box of style that I write in, right? And try different things. And it was really encouraging for me and a learning experience that, you know, my art, my say in the song doesn't have to be an end all be all, you know, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make the song the best song possible. And if that's an outside idea, Keith has a better idea, Ken has a better idea, Machine has a better idea, then so be it, right? And it was a humbling experience. And there's a song called Truth or Consequence on the record, and that song was a completely different song before Ken wrote it. And Machine snuck Keith into his hotel room one night, and they rewrote the song and showed up with it, and it was amazing. Not that Ken's version wasn't, but this was something that was going to be like probably a throwaway to maybe one of my favorite songs on the album. It was dark, it was heavy, it had like an anthemic chorus that I was able to like write to it. And I think actually the chorus was the one thing that existed from that song that like was still there. And it just took it to a new level, and Ken was really fucking pissed. And, you know, he was kind of left in the dark about it. But, you know, I think that those experiences are like good for like any young songwriter or musician, because it just really, it gets you to humble yourself and say that like my idea might not be the best, and I need to do what's best for the project or what we're working on collectively. And I think that that's where a lot of clash with the bands take place. And when it comes to layering my vocals, which was something Troy you brought up like early in the question, I'm a big fan of like Guns N' Roses and Alice in Chains,
Mm.
and there's a lot of like
Yes,
stacked vocals and layers, and so that's something I just like to do with melody, and something that I really really enjoyed being able to do on the Burn Halo records. Because
absolutely.
I had less people on those records, pretty much no one telling me you should do this or that with the vocals. It was, and I would have been open to criticism or whatever. But the
Mm.
first record was me and the songwriter Zach Malloy from the Nixons, and the two records after, there was little to no input from anyone else. That was just strictly all me wanting to do whatever I wanted. I wrote and arranged 100% of the vocals. And yeah, I mean, really fun for me to just kind of have free will, you know?
I was going to say, so from a songwriting perspective, do you find those last two Burn Halo albums to be, I don't want to say more fulfilling, but are they more satisfying because you had more control?
I think for me, Up From the Ashes is maybe my favorite record front to back that I've ever done. And I guess I should retract a little bit on the last thing I said, because I did co-write 3 songs on that record. I wrote the title track with the guy that did the Shinedown record, and that was very much like a 50-50, just bouncing ideas like one after another. I wrote this part. It's like, hey, I got an idea for this, and so he would kind of go off of that, and then I would finish it, and it was very like much like that. And I would say, Stranded and Rest My Soul were the same way as well. I wrote with another songwriter. But again, there was never anyone like pushing me or saying you can't do this or you can't do that, or let's try this instead, or I don't know, this would be better. When we wrote those songs together, they just naturally came out. It's just like you kind of shit out those songs. You know what I mean? Like just come
Yeah.
right out. So, and the other songs, I took a lot more. Those songs were written in one day each, right? Like the other songs on the record, I really took a lot more time in writing and exploring like different melodies. Um, and I think what I loved about that record in particular is the band wrote that album together, like in a rehearsal space. Like, of course, like Joey brought his songs to the table, Aaron brought his songs, Brandon brought his songs, um, and their songs were their songs, right? Like Joey would, do his lead guitars and bring the song to life, right? And we find out in the studio he can't really play rhythm guitar for shit. So which is funny because he just shreds. He's such a shredder. But Brandon just had a way of like the way he played guitar with so much feel and pocket was just for a rhythm
Mm.
guitar player was just so locked in. And the 3 rhythm dudes, the drummer Dylan, Brandon, the guitar player, and Aaron, the bass player, they grew up playing country in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So they're just like really
Yeah.
locked into like the musical sections where Joey just wants to like shred and noodle and um, play as fast as he can. And we were able to calm him down and really get him to like play some very memorable, tasteful guitar leads. But he was a great songwriter as well. I think just the way that whole album came together, um, for us, it felt like, a bunch of young kids, even though like I wasn't young at the time, being in a band
Mm.
and like just being in a rehearsal space, like writing music
Yeah.
together. It was just really pure and raw. And I really just love what we were able to, accomplish with that album. And it's sad it didn't do what it could have done, on like, a bigger scale. But I would say that album and the self-titled 18 Visions record were my favorite ones. The last Burn Halo album, Wolves of War, I actually didn't even want to record that. So I'd actually already quit the band and gotten like roped back into like doing another record. So I was just at a different point in my life where I was pursuing my career as a hairstylist again and looking for more
Yeah.
stability in my life. I was, in my early 30s, and I just didn't really want to tour music anymore. So I was
Mm.
happy writing it and recording it in the end, but then they booked all these tours, and I was just like, I'm not going to tour. So they like replaced me. Yeah.
Interesting that you touched on that about the stability in life, because Troy and I always thought that we were going to do something massive with music. We always had this grand idea that we were going to be super successful and write, you know, great songs and tour a bunch and do all that. Didn't pan out that way, unfortunately. But at some point in our lives, we've had to reconcile the fact that, you know what, it's probably not going to happen for us, and just kind of ease in and settle into, I guess, normalcy, like everybody else. So you having had the success that you had, was that
Mm.
tough to kind of, was that a tough place to get to where you're like, you know what, I'm probably going to have to focus on other aspects of my life. Music's going to take a backseat for now.
I think what it was when Burn Halo first started going, right? Like 18 Visions ended like where the label had thrown so much money into that record and they
Mm.
completely mismanaged the rollout of that album from the first single like
Mm.
all the way like down the road. They did not. There was our A&R guy and two people in the radio department that knew what to do with our band. But unfortunately, they don't have the say. It's the president of the label.
Mm.
The president just hears Tonightless and Broken Hearted, and it's like, this is an alternative like rock band. Like, no, we were a hardcore band. We have some heavy songs on here. This isn't the way to do things. And, we really lost like control over what we wanted to do, and they just fumbled it, right? And like, um, you know, it was really, really frustrating because we were doing this, right? Um, it wasn't like the touring wasn't there. We were getting great offers for tours. I mean, even before we broke up, we actually, I think, found out we got dropped from the label in Australia when we were doing Soundwave.
Mm.
Yeah.
And even then, we still had tours lined up. We had offers, and we had labels that were interested, like Roadrunner. And Ken and Keith were just like, I don't want to chase it again. I don't want it to start from the ground up again, and just, you know.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, well, I'm not done yet. So I went in and, wrote some songs with Zach Malloy, got myself a record deal, finished a record, recorded it, got dropped from that label because my A&R guy got let go. And they gave us the record back, which was crazy. And my touring was insane. Like, I had some connections with bands, but like I had really good touring. And, the song Dirty Little Girl peaked like really high at rock radio here, and it was doing really
Mm.
well. And then we had a bunch of labels that wanted to sign the band, and so we pumped the brakes on the next single, and there was all these promises made from different labels, and none of them came through. And that kind of like bottomed out. And then touring Up From the Ashes was really difficult. We didn't get the level of touring that we were getting before. We got some okay tours, but it wasn't what we needed. Again, like the wrong single was picked for radio.
Mm.
And once again, fumbled by people that think they know better. And then, the last Burn Halo album is a total wash because I didn't even want to tour that record anymore. But, during the end of like Up From the Ashes, I was booking our own tours because I couldn't get our agent to do anything for us. And he was at a big agency and a big agent.
Wow.
And like, I was just so frustrated that I kept us busy for like 8 weeks. I booked 8 weeks of touring, and some of the shows were really, really good. Some of them were just like, okay. But I just knew, I was like, look, like I can't keep doing this. I can't, like, I don't want to keep chasing this. And so I came to the realization that I needed to do something else for myself. Um, and then, of course, Keith calls me up and wants to work on some old 18 Vision songs in 2016. And, we're just at different places in our lives where we want it to be fun and we want to be happy doing it, and we don't want any pressure. We don't want to tour full time. And I have no doubt in my mind that if we came back in 2017 with that record 18, and we did tour full time because we did get good tour offers, we were getting good like festivals, and we did do a bunch of cool stuff, that we would have had the band back on the map and probably at a bigger level than before within the span of a year.
Yeah, wow.
Just because I think the music was there was people excited that the band was back. We were playing old songs as well. It wasn't just like focused on self-titled. It wasn't just focused on Obsession. It wasn't just focused on new music. We were really like, if we're going to play shows, we will let's play stuff off of every record, whereas, when we were supporting the self-titled album, it would be like Tower of Snakes and a couple songs off Obsession and maybe Vanity or like You Broke Like Glass and nothing before. But now we're just trying to cover the whole span of the band's catalog because it's fun for us and we have the material to do it. So I think, especially with social media and the streaming platforms now where people don't actually have to go out and buy an album or a CD off of like one single, right? And be like, I don't like the rest of it, or the rest of it doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
They can give it a sample, and it's just easy to share new music with people and find new artists and like, oh, what's 18 Visions up to with this record? Oh, this is really cool. I like this. Oh, they're playing these songs. Oh, they're supporting Under Oath. Oh, they're supporting, this band, and they're playing old songs mixed in with some of this new stuff. Yeah, I'll go see them. It would have been, I think, fairly easy for us to get back to where we were.
I just want to touch two questions. One, only because I'm asking this because I'm a singer and I'm really curious because I'm interested how you go about it. Two questions. So the first being, just going back to the songwriting stuff for both bands, Burn Halo and 18 Visions. With your melodies, are you a person that would write like sort of the melodies first and then try and fit the lyrics over the melodies? Or would you, yeah, I'm assuming so because to get those melodies with the words, man, sounds awesome.
Thank
That's
you.
exactly what I thought.
Yeah, so basically what I would do, I used to write the lyrics first.
Yeah.
And what I would do, or what I do now on anything I write, is I don't have any great recording equipment, so I just take the song into GarageBand and I open up a bunch of files or tracks, I should say. And I just start singing words or sounds and I'll record them. And sometimes the first go is the best, and sometimes the last go is the best, and sometimes I'll Frankenstein stuff. And then because I am spouting off certain words just off the top of my mind, maybe I'll have a thought in mind that I want to write about, and so I'll just start kind of singing words and whatnot. But usually I'll take whatever words I was singing, like that were nonsense, and then I'll sit down once I have the framework for my melodies, and I'll start to write the lyrics. And typically I will write the chorus first lyrically, because I feel like that for me is the most important part of the song. It's usually like repeated a couple of times. So like, what is an important song lyric? And then from there, I like to try and get clever with things. I'm a really big fan of when the words do what the music is doing. So if I can sing the words to what the music is doing, that is like A plus for me. Like Leonard Cohen's, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift. Like that is just musical brilliance. And so if I can do that, like I'm happy. But obviously, it doesn't happen often, and it's not something that can happen in every song. And then I think for the last two things that 18 Visions has done, um, they've been concept albums where we're trying to create, or EPs. We're trying to create a vibe, right? And so the first one's Inferno. They're based on Divine Comedy. The second one's Purgatorio. The third one will be Paradiso. And so each one has a concept. So I find myself writing about what it might be like in hell, or really, really dark, aggressive lyrics with Purgatorio, what it might be like to be in purgatory and living there, and how I can, relate that to myself. So and then I'm working on another project with a friend of mine, Neil Tiemann, that plays in Carnifex right now, which is like a rock-based project, and that again is just more based on like personal experiences, a lot of writing in retrospect, stuff like that. But again, melody's always first, because if the melody's not there, usually no one gives a shit about what you have to say.
That's true.
Unless you're just screaming it, of course. If you're just screaming it, it doesn't really matter,
I saw a video online, actually. I'm not sure if you're aware of these guys. Extreme, the band Extreme, they had that More Than Words song. So you had Nuno Betancourt and Gary Sharon, and they were writing a follow-up to Porno Graffiti, their second album. They had this song called Rest in Peace, but it was just the music. And so Nuno and Gary are talking about the melody, and they're humming the melody to each other. And so Gary, the singer, is trying to come up with lyrics, and they're actually counting how many syllables he needs to write lyrics for. It was a really interesting way of doing it. I'm like, man, that's like a different way of doing it. But Nuno's like, no, there's 8 syllables for this section. There's 4 for this section. And they were breaking it down. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen. And having heard the songs, I would never have thought that's how that was written. So it's really weird how a song can take you on this writing journey as well. That's, you'll do out of the box things to just come up with like a killer idea.
Yeah, syllables are super important because it's kind of like the cadence of it, right? And so if you've got a longer word that has more syllables, it might not fit the cadence. It might feel rushed. It might feel slowed down. And so, I found myself in those situations like, wait, hold on, then I got to count 1, 2, 3. I got to cut a word out. I got to cut a syllable out. Where do I cut that out? What word can I use in this place? And it makes you think rather than have it feel, because in theory you can fit it in there, but it might feel rushed and it just might not sound as pleasing as it would if it was just done the right way. Well, I guess there's no right or wrong way, but if it's just done with the correct amount of space for what you're trying to achieve.
I'm going to say I definitely think, just quick on that point, I think that's why a lot of English-speaking bands, whether you're from America, UK, Australia, whatever, do well, because I think just the way that the syllables work in the English language. Like I've been to Japan a bunch of times, I've been overseas. When you hear whether it's a band from Italy or a native Japanese band, when they try and sing, they might have some great music underneath the vocals. But I think just because of their native language doesn't have the same syllable effect as English, it doesn't seem to have the same, I don't know, it's not catchy. It doesn't have the same thing as when you sing in English. And I think that's why probably a lot of English speaking bands, or even bands that are from other countries that sing in English, do well, because the melodies just seem to be a lot more they're more flexible, and they're a lot more catchy than trying to sing a chorus in Japanese. It's not going to end up the same sort of thing,
Yeah, so there's a Swedish band, I don't think they're a band anymore, called Kent, Kent, like Clark Kent. and they were, I think, really big in Sweden. And Ken from 18 Visions saw them, I think, open up for the Cardigans way back in the day. And he started playing the CD, and it was amazing. But it was in English, right? And I want to say the first 2 or 3 albums they did had English versions, and they were catchier, way catchier. Now, I've gone and listened to those albums in Swedish, and they are great and beautiful. I like hearing the native tongue, but like you said, it's just not quite as catchy. The syllables just don't match up the same way. It's almost like it just doesn't like flow off the tongue in a musical sense of like what they're trying to do. And it begs the question, did they write those songs in English first, or did they write them in Swedish first? I have no idea.
That's true.
I have no idea.
Yeah, man.
But the later stuff, I think that they realized that there was not much of a demand for it, at least over here in the U.S. So I think the rest of their catalog's just in Swedish. But I mean, I really enjoy it. Like, I enjoy listening to that. There was what was that band? I can't remember the name of them. Ken used to listen to them a lot. It was very just musical with they were Icelandic with Icelandic vocals, and that was really cool as well. Mm-hmm. But that was much more ethereal and like a lot more like space and airy sounding.
And how do you feel about like being in a band now at this point in time now as to what you were in the mid 2000s, late 2000s? How do you find being in a band now with the atmosphere, or not the atmosphere, sorry, the business-wise, prices, I don't know, the whole sort of music scene at the moment? Do you find it sort of a lot tougher to be in a band and a working band as and with, you know, with streaming, with loss of revenue from sales and other things? How do you find it being in a band now as compared to, like, you know, the 2000s, mid to late 2000s?
Sigur Rós was the band I was thinking of.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. We didn't make that much money back then.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to Keith about this like recently. I was like, dude, remember when bands used to sell their shirts for $10? And then there was that band like on tour that would sell it for $12, and you'd be like, what the fuck? Like $12 is crazy. And then people started selling them for $15, and you're like, $15, like what is going on here? And then there's that band that would sell their CD for $12, and you'd be pissed off because you only have 10, or you want to buy a CD and a shirt and you only have like $20 or whatever. And it's just the cost. I mean, we used to be able to make shirts for under $4, you know, and there wasn't this like idea of like trying to make a living in the early years of touring, you know. We went out and just had fun and, you know, slept on floors, and we really just needed gas money. You know, that was it. We weren't trying to make a living. And then when we did try to make a living, it was okay. We did okay, you know, but there's, you know, management commissions and booking commissions and, you know, expenses, you know, just started doing this. And now like gas prices are crazy, right? Lodging isn't as cheap as it used to be. Bus rentals are not cheap. The cost of living is not cheap. Cost of production for, you know, manufacturing shirts or like merchandise is like not cheap anymore. You know, like we like to print on like we have a brand over here called Comfort Colors that like is kind of like the new gold standard of like printing on for t-shirts. And I think blanks are like $7-8 a pop, and the cost for screen setups are more, and like these print companies are bigger, they have more employees, and the cost of their supplies cost more. So it's like if you're doing like a two-sided shirt and it's like more than like one or two, three colors, like, dude, it's not going to be cheap to print. And then you get into a long sleeve shirt and you're doing four-sided, you're doing down each sleeve and you're doing two or three colors. And now all of a sudden that shirt costs like $25 to make, and you're just like, well, we got to charge, $40 for it or whatever, the cost is, because that's just the way it all works. So it's I think you can make more money now. I do think in general, from the way it seems to me, is bands make more money. But again, like the overhead of touring is more expensive. So it just depends on like what part of the country you live in, right? Because if I live in Southern California, my financial overhead living here is going to be more expensive than if I lived in like Texas or Oklahoma or, Kentucky or, some place in the Midwest or in the South. It's just, but my income is not going to change. It's going to be the same. So it's just the cost of living, right? So it's, I don't know. I feel like bands get paid more now than they used to, and they probably make more off merchandise than they used to. I think that's just, you have to offset the cost of living and the cost of touring. And, like you said, like that there's streaming now, people aren't really buying CDs and albums.
Hey man, I just wanted to get your thoughts quickly, just on a recent event. Obviously, Ozzy Osbourne kind of wrapped up his his touring career and had that massive kind of back to the beginning, that final farewell show in Villa Park. Did you catch any of that? And what are your thoughts on that being kind of an exclamation mark on his career? Was he somebody that you were influenced by at all?
I wasn't really influenced by him, but a lot of bands I love were influenced by him. I mean, I love Sabbath and a lot of like the early Ozzy stuff. For sure, it's great. It's classic. Like, I mean, a lot of our music doesn't exist without Black Sabbath. Like two things. I think it's, we were talking about it. I did catch some of it, and we were talking about it when we were out playing this last go around, or maybe it was two go arounds a few weeks ago, whenever it happened. And the first Oasis shows were happening as well. So we were talking about all that. And our drummer Matt was like, "Dude, it was ridiculous. He came up on stairs and up on stage through the bottom, and he was in like this cart, and they had to like pull him back. And we're like, dude, like he's like fucking 80, man. Like you're how old he is, and he's like, I think he's got Parkinson's or something, right? It's like, dude, give the guy a break, man. Like he's going up there and fucking doing what he loved doing one last time. Like that's incredible. And the other incredible thing about it is the amount of money that a bunch of fucking metal bands raised, right? For like a great cause.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really great people in the metal world, and I think metal has just gotten like this bad stigma for such a long time. And like the type of people that play that music and follow and support it. I think one of the people that I look up to in the industry as an outstanding individual is Randy from Lamb of God. That dude has a heart of gold. Just following him online and all the great things he does for the metal community and the way that, he wants to help, humanity and people in need, and his heart, the size of his heart is just absolutely immense. And there's a lot of people like that in the metal world, and I think it gets overlooked. So the fact that they were able to raise as much money as they did for such a great cause is amazing, and just cool to see all these bands, taking part in it. You had Guns N' Roses up there and Metallica on the same stage. It didn't really seem like there were egos, like where you try and do this 30 years ago, and like this is never going to happen 30 years ago, never going to happen 20 years ago. You know,
Heavy punch ups
and
30 years ago.
yeah, I think it's just beautiful to see.
Yeah, we were super pumped about it. We there were some standout performances that we thought were just people winding down their careers, but other people just absolutely launching their careers off the back of some of the performances at this Aussie thing. Like it was, it
Yeah.
was just it was a masterclass on how to run an event. I thought, um, which kind of begs the question. I mean, Aussie's tapping out. Are there any kind of true rock stars left, like massive, I don't know, that kind of transcend the music industry that are just mainstream, massive rock stars? Are there any of those left?
Mainstream, massive rock stars. That's a good question. I mean, whew,
I mean, we touched on Oasis.
I mean,
Oasis are back. Like I would say that they are probably one of the last,
yeah. I
remaining
mean,
rock stars.
Liam's proper rock star, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah,
get. I mean, he's not
yeah.
flashy by any means, but just the persona and like the vibe that he carries. That I mean, that's it, right? Like otherwise, it's hard for me to say on like a grand on a grand scale that transcends genre. It's really, I mean, I don't really know. Like, I mean, Rob Zombie is up there for me, but is he like a household name? You know, I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
He's
you know,
probably
there's
more
some
so for
house.
his directing and his movies.
Yeah,
His movies and his
right.
directing have made him more mainstream than anything.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, I know there's some people that definitely act the part, um, and I feel like a lot of what they do is based on them creating their own controversy. So I feel like
Mm.
it's very forced. I don't feel like it's a natural thing where there is this like people are people are making them the rock star, right? Like where it's like an adoration or an idolization thing. I think it's quite the contrary. I think it's more a lot of it's drawn up from like negativity and just wanting to like be somebody that's talked about, right? Because there's no such thing as bad press, they say. So
And so going forward with you, what are your what are your plans at 18 Visions? Like, what do you foresee yourself doing in the next 5 years going forward? And secondly, just on that, to add to that, you mentioned Aussie, he's got Parkinson's, he's 80. Um, I'm just curious. I'm assuming we're sort of similar age, early 40s or in the 40s. You're screaming. How do you feel at this age with your voice? Like, is that something? I mean, I can't scream. I can just sing. I've tried, but I can never do it. Is that something? How do you feel within yourself? Like, is that something you think you can, keep doing into your 50s if you wanted to? So, two questions: where are you going with your music, and how do you think could you sing that way? In the next 10 years as well? I'm just curious.
I think I could sing that way for the next 10 years. I think it's a matter of knowing your voice, right? I think one thing I've learned is
Mm.
uh, I would really, I can't hear myself well right now, so I need to sing harder and louder, right? And that's when bad things happen,
Yeah.
right? And it's just kind of
Yeah.
like I can't hear myself. I just need to lay back and like trust that I am, you know, getting this across the best way possible, right? Because I do pride
Yeah.
myself on being a good above average live vocalist, somebody that can scream and then hit all of the clean notes like bang on,
Yeah.
right? Um, because I think that there's, something to that. And, for me going to see a band that does that where it's the screams sound great and like the cleans don't, or the cleans sound great and the screams don't, like, I want
Mm.
both. And so I want to be able to do both. Um, I think the more you play, for me, I found the more I play and the more I sing, the more it just kind of gets conditioned. So if I needed to go out and do like
Mm.
a full tour for a month, I could. Now I probably am going to want or need a day off every 3 to 4 days, depending on how long the sets are and what songs are in the set. But again, like I don't see that happening for 18 Visions. For us, I know we want to finish the third installment of the EP trilogy. That'll be 6 songs. And then I also know that there are 2, if not 3 more albums that I would like to issue on vinyl for the first time or reissue on vinyl.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
That's a great idea, man. Like vinyl is,
Yeah.
I don't think vinyl's ever gone away. You had vinyl, cassette tapes came in, CDs came in, they came out with laser discs, you know, now it's streaming,
Yeah.
but vinyl has always just kind of stayed the course, right? Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
And that's another thing, expense wise, man. That stuff is not cheap to make, you know. For us, like, I mean, sure, if you just want to slide like a black vinyl record in like a regular like vinyl cover with like no extras, sure, you know, you can get the cost down on that. But if you want it to be special, you want it hand numbered on the back out of like, you know, we like to do editions of 100 or 150 or 250, right? And we hand number those so that you know that there's not more than that floating around in circulation, and that comes straight from the plant. That costs extra. The packaging, like we like special packaging. We like to do different things with the packaging, and that is especially not cheap. And having different colors and just different color configurations to make them special and unique, that is not cheap. So yeah, but it's fun for us to do. We do like it because a couple of us do collect vinyl on our own. So being able to do this and share it with our fans is definitely, you know, it's fun for us.
I've got one because I'm kind of like a captive audience here. Like I'm in kind of rural New South Wales, like a regional town, and I have a wife, I have 4 kids. Still like to write. Really hard for me to record because it's just everyone around me all the time. So I've started using a little bit of kind of AI just to get some ideas, like for drums and bass and do stuff like that. What's your take on that space and where that's headed? Is that something that you see as something that can be a valuable tool, or do you think it's just like we need to kind of next this and cut that off?
Well, I mean, look, I think if you are a guitar player or like a musical composer and you want a drum beat for something, I don't see really any problem with you using an AI drum beat for a song and then taking that to a drummer and having the drummer recreate and personalize those drums. As far as like writing music, then we're getting to the point where it takes the personal artistry out of it, right? It takes that. For me, not everyone can write and compose music, or they would do it. Not everyone can paint, or they would do it. Not everyone can act, or they would do it. Not everyone can sing, or they would do it. Or not everyone can weld. They can't do clay. They can't build and create structures and buildings. If we could all create out of nothing from this, then we wouldn't be unique in those ways, right? And like, there's a lot of skill sets that other people have that I don't have, right? And it's not that maybe some of those things I can't learn or be taught. You can learn how to play guitar. You can be taught how to play guitar. However, can you be taught to create? And I don't know that you can. I think that you just have that special knack to do so based on your own experiences and your own mind and the way that your own mind thinks. And I think when we start to use artificial intelligence, because that's our own intelligence, right? Musically intelligent, artistically intelligent, creatively intelligent, and now we're using something artificial to replace our own intelligence. And I just can't, it's just something I just can't really get on board with. You know, I would hate to, let's just say, you know, um, Oasis wrote a new song, for example, since they're back and playing shows, right? And you're like, oh my God, this new Oasis song is unreal. It's a God tier Oasis song, right? It's a top 5 all time Oasis song. And then you find out that it was written by AI.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think it can be a useful tool in assisting somebody to get the structure of their song with drums or something like that. But in terms of helping them like actually create, that's just a hard no for me. Imagine like Lord of the Rings was written by AI, or the Godfather script was written by AI, right? Like I couldn't fathom, you know, and you know, that's again like using AI like that. Now we start to get it. Now we start to get into the realm of people losing their jobs. You know, different writers, authors, screenwriters, script writers. You know, and it's just, you know, like you said, it's the integrity of it, and you start to lose that.
Here's a scenario. This is one I did. I thought about. I chatted to probably Dale about a little while ago. I'm just going to use one of my sort of popular. Here's one. So let's say, for example, now Joe Elliott, singer from Def Leppard, his voice is done. Let's say they're done, but let's say say his voice is done now, but they want to continue. The other guys are like, we want to do this band for another 10 years. We can all still play. And the reason why I'm asking is because I saw another video about some rapper, I forget what it was, but they were going to try and sort of make a trademark of their clone because he couldn't sing anymore. But he could make a clone of his voice, so he could sort of rap his new songs in the voice that he had, but then it would be replicated in, like, say, the voice that he had in the 90s, right? So if Def Leppard they said, we've got this great album, but Joe can only sing like, bass, but the melodies are great, but he can only sing them really low. But they've found a clone. They can bring back his voice from 1987. We'll say sing it, but then we can just implement that technology to make you sound like you did in 87. Would you listen to that? And I'm only saying that, band, think of your favorite band or one of your favorite bands in that scenario where maybe the singer can't sing anymore, but you still love them. Would you listen to new product if they were to continue? The rest of the band could continue, but they somehow got their voice to sound like it did back in their prime.
Right. We talk about recreating the voice, right? And I think the Beatles did that a little bit with that new song that they put out a year or two ago that John Lennon had. And that was like I don't know if you watched that documentary on it, but it was like over a 10-year 10 years in the works or something like that. And each one of the members played on it. And I think that it was actually, I think, Peter Jackson that did the Lord of the Rings films that was able to kind of develop this thing to help kind of separate the vocal from the music because the quality was so bad.
Yeah.
And I think that some of the vocals were recreated with AI, and I don't have a problem with that because it doesn't exist without it. You're not using it to, it's still like the original member, right? So if Joe Elliott is writing all of these melodies and lyrics, and he can only sing some of it, he can only maybe do the low register stuff, but he can't do the grand scheme of it. I don't see a problem with them using that to like make the voice sound great or what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how they tour that, I have no idea. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
then you're talking about just using tracks, right? Um, but in terms of just getting the artwork down, the for me, like the first and foremost piece of the art is the melody and the words, right? And then it's the artist that delivers them, right? Like,
Mm.
you know, a Def Leppard cover band, most likely the singer's not going to be able to deliver it the same way, right? Like, the imitation is
Mm.
usually not as good as the original. Um, So, I mean, that would be tricky in a live sense of what they wanted to do, or if they even did want to tour it live, or how they would go about that if they just get a different singer, or they just say, we're going to use tracks, and it is what it is. Or can you find, somebody else in the band to hit those notes for you instead? Um, I personally would try and find every avenue possible to get at least somebody in the band that was able to achieve those notes in a live setting before I started to explore other options.
And speaking of live, click tracks, tracks being used live to kind of fill out the performance. So, you know, I guess production tracks like synths and underlying instrumentation that perhaps you wouldn't normally have live. You cool with having that like on a click live? Do you guys play with a click?
Yeah, so we do because we have like a small like floor light show that Keith has created that is like synced to the music. So that is on a
Yeah.
click track. And if the drummer is not on that, then the music doesn't line up with the production, the lighting. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, we do play to a click. Also, we were running bass tracks when the band first came back, and we did not have a bass player, and that was we just kind of wanted to honor Mick that way, who passed away, gosh, 12 years ago now, I think.
Mm.
And so we just didn't go with, and so we had bass tracks, and it was no one cared, and I think people thought it was just kind of cool that we didn't have one, and then we had some malfunctions on stage at one point a couple of years ago, and we're like, we need a fucking bass player. Because if the click goes out, like we don't have a bass player, we can't. If something happens to the
Yeah.
software or whatever, and it does happen, it's not like failsafe, right?
Yeah.
It does happen. I've seen it happen to other bands, and you don't have the bass player, like then you're fucked. Can we play without a click? Absolutely. We actually
Mm.
were rehearsing a lot without a click just to be able to not have it something that was like relied upon. Um, but I think we just were like, yeah, we got to have a fucking bass player. So we got our friend Dan Smith in, who's actually from New Zealand and lived in Australia.
Yeah.
Played
Right.
in a band called Day of Contempt down there for a long time.
And so, do you guys find that you need to? I mean, are you playing enough where you don't need to rehearse? Do you guys need to still rehearse, or like you're playing enough gigs that you don't really, you just rock up and it's all good?
No, we rehearse. It's good for us because I mean, for one, our drummer's in like two or three bands and like I want to say two cover bands. So he's really active. So the
Mm.
amount of material he's always playing is just a lot. Um, and I think me and Keith are good, but Dan, because he's relatively new in the last couple of years, and a lot of this material is new, and especially doing these until the ink runs out songs. There's so many fucking parts, and there's so many notes in a riff,
Mm.
and it's just good that like, hey, we're gonna go play a show, or we're gonna go play a few shows. Like, let's do a refresher, or let's do like two refreshers, or you know what, we want to add two or three songs into like the next round of shows that we've either never played or we're just not familiar with, and so yeah, we'll need rehearsals, but um, not to mention, man, like it's just fun to fucking play music.
Speaking of playing music, man, September, you guys are back in the UK with the Treyu. Are you super pumped for
Yeah,
that?
extremely. Yeah, I think those shows are going to be really cool. We went over there when the band got back together in 2017. Our London show was killer. The other two shows were like not great, and we used to do really well over there. And I just like I don't think people knew we were back playing again. Um,
Yeah.
because we're getting a lot of messages after the band got back together. Come to the UK. Oh, we were just there. Well, I had no idea. I just found out the band was back together, and so I'm really looking forward to going over there and hopefully, being able to establish ourselves to the point where we can go over there once a year maybe and do 3, 4, 5 gigs on
Mm.
our own would be really cool.
Any plans on coming to Australia at all?
I would love to, man. I would love to. I think for us, it's been so long. It's been 20 years almost. Beginning in
Mm.
2007, we were down there for Soundwave. That was the last time we were there,
Yeah.
right before the band broke up. I would absolutely love to. I just don't know if the demand is there. I think we would really need
Mm.
a band that would want to take us, or a promoter that could put us with, maybe the right headliner, like Australian headliner,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
where we would
Yeah.
just basically be going down there just for a break even. I mean, I think these trips for
Yeah.
us, going out and playing internationally, we all have jobs and careers, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
nice to walk home with some money. Um, I'm not a salary job, so when I'm not in the salon, I'm not earning. However, I do have the luxury to make my own schedule, and I can go and do this and not have to bring home any money. It's almost like a paid for vacation,
Mm.
even though it's not really a
Yeah.
vacation, in a sense.
Yeah.
It's more going out there and just doing the gigs and stuff. So um, yeah, obviously expenses covered is great. Coming home with money is even better. Something I think we would all love to do at some point.
With 18 Visions, I guess, is there any particular sort of albums that it's in your mind, like, I want to get this recorded with this band or this type of vision before I sort of, at some point call it a day with them? Or how do you see yourself playing out with that in Vision? Is it something you're just going to continue doing and then at some point it's like, I think it's run its course, or is there something like I really want to record this type of album with them, whether it's I really want to go more melodic or more heavy, or is there any type of vision you want to execute before I guess it's time down the track that you call it a day with them?
That's an interesting question. I've never really thought about it. I think that's really a Keith question. I've done vocally just about everything I could have ever wanted to do between
Mm.
18 Visions and Burn Halo. And then
Yeah.
I had a friend that does this synthwave project called All the Damn Vampires, and he asked me to write and sing on one of those songs, and so I did that, and that was very different for me and a cool experience. And then writing and recording an album with my friend Neil, that's in Carnifex, has been really cool because it started like before COVID, and I was like, he played on the first Burn Halo record, and he
Yeah.
wrote "Save Me" with us, and I think one other song,
Oh, love
and
that song.
he played all the guitars on it, and he was supposed to be in the band. One of his like good friends ended up winning American Idol like a year later over here, and he ended up playing with him and being the music director for that. And
Oh wow.
we've always just been friends and stayed in touch. And he was in Devil Driver for quite a while. He's been in Carnifex now for a few years, and he's been in other bands. He was in a band with Brandon from Atreyu called Hell or High Water that was really cool. And we like a lot of the same stuff. And just because he plays metal doesn't mean it has to be metal. So one of his favorite bands is Silverchair, who
Yeah,
I
wow.
absolutely love as well. And I approached him like before COVID, and I was like, dude, we need to like write a record together. Like, this is crazy. We've never done this, Like, let's do like a rock album. Like, let's do like some like Jar of Flies, like Alice in Chains type stuff. And so that's kind of how
Oh,
it started
yeah.
out. And then he started sending me like songs that had like string compositions to them that felt very much like Alice in Chains meets like Silverchair. And then I started hearing some like Smashing Pumpkins, like melancholy era stuff in it.
Mm.
And then I started hearing, a little bit of like Bush influence on some of it. And it's really, really cool what we've been working on um, for ourselves. I mean, of course, we're going to release it at some point, and how that gets done, what happens with it, I have no idea. Um, but that has really, I think, served a really like filled a really big creative hole in me because I did really enjoy doing a lot of the Burn Halo like strictly clean vocals, right? Um,
Mm.
and that was obviously like more like really like upbeat like rock stuff. This is much more like vibey and has like more of a feel to it. Not that there isn't some like upbeat moments, but um, it's kind of like a blend of some of like my favorite stuff and his favorite stuff
Cool.
musically. And with 18 Visions being like so heavy and like really kind of like metal and hardcore focused now, um, there's kind of been a little bit of a hole creatively with like the rock stuff for me. So it's been really cool to be
Yeah.
able to do that again.
Any regrets, mate? Looking back over
Regrets.
everything, yeah, there anything that you're like, man, I wish I had done that different. I wish this had played out differently. Anything that was, I guess, within your control that you think, man, I probably should have done that differently.
Well, on one hand, I feel like I'm in the scope of the universe right where I need to be and right where I'm meant to be for myself. So I don't have any regrets. If I did have one regret, it would be not, uh, I think, in a selfish sense for like my career, it would be like not going back and doing like a more like metalcore record uh, straight after 18 Visions broke up because I think I was at a place vocally where if I just would have gone back in like and done something maybe like Kill Switch Engage where it's like real melodic heavy metal mixed in with like really cool interesting clean melodic vocals, I think I could have done something like that and had that done pretty well at the time. I think the Burn Halo stuff was just um, me, and that's where I was at that point in my life. That's what I wanted to do.
Mm.
I never considered doing anything like what I just talked about. But when you look back, you're like, man, I probably could have done that, and maybe things would have gone different for me. But it's always that like what if, and you never know what's going to happen, right? Like, man, the way
Mm.
that the president of the label came into our self-titled mixes when we were mixing the record in New Jersey, and he was gassing us up about Broken Hearted and how massive it was going to be. And anybody that heard that song at the time knew that that was a massive song. Um, and so we're like, fuck yeah, we've made it. Like, we're going to make it. Like, this is going to be big, right? And like, we just started off doing all the right tours, even though we're like, you guys should have picked this single instead. Should have gone with Victim. We fought them tooth and nail on that early on. Um, and, when they finally were like, yeah, our manager calls us, we're in Australia. Hey, you guys are getting dropped. We're like, fuck. Like, they just said we had a $200,000 budget for a music video for Broken Hearted. And there's like 25 pop stations
Wow.
that want to add Broken Hearted right now. Because this was going to be the plan. And now they're just like, oh, you know what? You're not selling us enough records. We are not going to budget this for the next quarter, which was the first quarter of the year. Uh, and
Mm.
so, yeah, that's just how that kind of happened. And, um, that was as much of a sure thing as I ever thought. And then fast forward to Burn Halo and, Roadrunner and Atlantic and all these record labels, like, we want to sign the band. We want to reissue this album and make this huge. It's like, yeah, fuck yeah, it's going to happen. We're going to be huge. And it just never happened. And it just seems like that's just not a part of the plan for me. And that's okay. So saying to go back and one regret, it's a very, very loose regret to go back and start like a metalcore band instead of Burn Halo. A very, very loose one. Because you just never know what's going to happen. I could have been in a band with a bunch of fucking dipshits. You never know. It's just, yeah.
I got to say, man, just before we wrap up, and this is obviously because Dale and I both, that album, that self-titled album is one of my top favorite albums. I think unfortunately for you guys, man, it's a crime that it didn't go big, because I think not just for you guys, but I think just for people, a lot of people not to be able to hear that album, because it's so amazing. Like, it's just one of the, I think, I know I'm really biased about it, but I just think it's one of the best hard rock metal catchy albums of all time that I own. It's like phenomenal, man. Production, everything's 10 out of 10, man. It's honestly the best, one of the best albums I've ever heard.
Thank you so much,
James, dude. My pleasure, man. Thank you so much from Dale and I. We really appreciate you being on the channel, man, and thanks for giving us your time again. Man. Hopefully, you guys get down here at some point. It'd be great to come to a show if you do. Thanks again, James. Really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Keep in touch, guys.
Thanks
Absolutely.
so much.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Yeah.